Hey everyone, welcome to the NFL edition of the Daily Fantasy Flex podcast for December 7th, 2016, brought to you by FantasyLabs. I'm Matthew Freedman, the editor-in-chief, and I'm joined by podcast regulars Adam Levitan and Peter Jennings. You can follow them on Twitter at Adam Levitan and CSURAM88. And also joining the show is Aaron Jones at AE Jones Lego. He's known across the industry as AE Jones. He's a former poker professional, one of the best DFS players in the world in basically every single sport, and the winner of the 2016 DraftKings Fantasy Football World Championship, for which he received a meager $5 million, which is not definitely the largest prize in DFS history. Aaron, besides sleeping on a bed of cash, how's it going? And you're still muted.
Yeah, it's good. I'm doing good. No complaints here. Still basking in the glory of that win, 8 months ago.
Yeah, it seems like the type of thing that could last a long time. How did Week 13 go for you?
Good question. I did well in cash, but I punted in all those high-stakes qualifiers going for extra seats on both sites. So I just bricked all of those and probably lost back enough to make up for what I won in cash. So I don't know. Went fine.
Levitan and Pete, how about you guys?
Go ahead, Pete.
Yeah, I mean, I had basically the same story as Aaron. FanDuel cash game team was essentially the nuts. DraftKings was marginal, and I punted in DraftKings tournaments. So I play more cash in FanDuel, more tournaments on DraftKings. So one side was good, one side was bad.
Yeah, I didn't play Travis Kelce in cash on DK, which I should be executed for. That was just inexcusable to not play Kelce on DK and cash, and so I got what I deserved on DK for sure.
Well, in terms of skill game propositions, Peter extended his streak of not breaking above 500 to 6 straight weeks. Peter, last week you were 6-11. What really did you in was your love for Amari Cooper and your dislike of Howard and Beckham. On the season, Pete and Levitan, you guys are actually tied with 69 wins. Of course, Levitan has 57 losses to Peter's 83. And
it's an unbelievable. I was 6 weeks ago. I was a firm leader in the clubhouse, and then now it's been. I'm destined to go 33% the rest of the way.
Yeah, I'm a slim 44-38. Aaron, our last 6 guests have all finished about 500. Above 500. Each one has been above 500, and they are combined 51-24. So I guess the question is, what is your plan for keeping this hot streak going? And then more seriously, as I mentioned at the top of the show, you play so many different sports at such a high level that suggests that in addition to knowing sports very well, you have a very theoretical brain. You're good at games. Can you talk about your approach to DFS in general?
Yeah, I mean, my plan to keep the hot streak going for the guests is just basically to bet against Peter. He seems to just dust it off every week.
Yep.
So I'm just going to keep doing that. And then, I don't know, I guess I can also just bet against Levitan with anything Odell related. And otherwise, I can't imagine losing to these guys, honestly. So I would expect to keep that up for sure. As far as kind of how I got in, I guess, to DFS or kind of how that worked with my poker background. I do like games. I've always liked it. It's sort of just been a right place, right time thing for me. Started with poker, right? I mean, I was playing poker around the boom when I was 17 or something like that. And then I got to college and it became just more of an obsession. I got really good at it. Thankfully, I'm one of those people that isn't just addicted and can't get enough of it and just wants to do it because they love the rush. It's more of I really want to actually win. So for me, it was pick up the books, everything written by Sklansky, and pick up Theory of Poker and all these, God forbid, I probably even read a Phil Hellmuth book and thought it was making me better. But I just, did all these things where I was okay, poker, I need to win. I can't just play. And, I remember winning $200 on maybe the day before Thanksgiving in my junior year of high school. And that was holy crap. That's, I don't know what this podcast is rated, but holy cow. I can't believe I won that much money. And that, carried over to online poker by the time I was 18. And then that carried over to, making it a career the second that I finished my 4th year of college. Notice I didn't say graduate because I'm pretty close. Anyways, but so that all just kind of carried over right place, right time. And with DFS, it was same thing. It was just kind of hey, it's time for it's time to gamble at something and it's sports related. And I'm already kind of a big sports fan. and it just worked out perfectly, basically. So like games, like winning, like figuring out how to win at games, and DFS was sort of the perfect storm for that.
I want to say I never have met Aaron before until this, but I have seen his star appearance on the show 2 months, 2 million. And I want to recommend this show to anybody who hasn't seen it. I mean, this show is unbelievable. Like, it's like one of those things that is supposed to be serious, but it's actually really a comedy if you watch it closely. And Aaron just kills it in like a supporting role. So I don't know how you can find it. Do you know, Aaron, how could people watch 2 months, 2 million anymore?
I think it might have been on Netflix for some brief period of time, but I honestly just don't even know how to find it. I usually, 2 months, 2 million is sort of a kind of one of those funny things where I was a little embarrassed about it for times, and now I'm just kind of like, oh my God, 22-year-old me or whatever it was like hysterical basically. So now I just look back and a lot of good dry comedy in that one. A lot of good dry comedy.
So good.
And you can definitely drop the F-bomb on here. Peter does it every time he's intoxicated, so it's totally good.
Yeah, that's correlated with going 4-25 on the props as well, betting on Amari Cooper. So we can keep that going this week.
Yeah, that was a staple of my Lego poker video, so I think people just wouldn't recognize it if I didn't have a couple of select F-bombs. So.
Yeah, you can definitely go for it. Now, it wasn't all that long ago that we had NFL, NBA, PGA, and then also NASCAR all in season. And you are obviously one of the top players in the industry in all of those sports. Can you talk about balancing those different sports, what your approach is in terms of bankroll research and just sort of like mental energy when you're thinking about all of these different games all at the same time?
Right. I mean, that's sort of the key, right? I mean, trying to figure out if you can play like the Sunday afternoon slate while NFL is going on in NBA is it's intense, obviously. I don't usually do it, and I try to stay balanced. First of all, I nix NASCAR as soon as I can. I mean, I qualified for the live final, so I had to make like a reappearance, but that was nixed as soon as football season started. I couldn't even imagine like doing a 2 p.m. Eastern NASCAR lock after like the sigh of relief for the 1 p.m. Eastern NFL lock. I just couldn't even, I would be way too fried to do that. So I nixed that right away. As far as like some of the other sports, the lock times usually work out pretty good. I mean, I'm never doing anything crazy like NHL and NBA at the same time. First of all, because I don't care about NHL at all, but also because that would just be way too much. But for me, it's just I usually take off NBA on the weekends, and then during the week I do NBA, and on the weekends I do NFL. And it's a grind, but I like it. Most of the time I like it, so I just kind of make it happen.
Yeah. Now, earlier in the show, you mentioned your poker background, and actually earlier in the year on the Roundtable podcast, we had a show that was dedicated to poker and DFS. And I'd like to get your thoughts on the applicability of poker to DFS, sort of like the lessons that you carried with you from being a poker professional to being a DFS pro.
Yeah, I mean, there's not a ton of carryover. There's a lot of carryover, and there's also not a lot of carryover. Most of the carryover really just comes from sort of understanding how to apply expected value to a situation and not be results oriented. I mean, that's the biggest one by far. Secondary, I guess, would be like understanding bankroll management. But really, it's just it's in everyday life, it's in understanding when like not to buy insurance with your rental car. Like, it's just all these like stupid little things that sort of my brain has been taught to, how often will you need this? Is blah, blah, like all these different expected value calculations that people never think of. I mean, poker players have these conversations like, is it safer to like take the train or an Uber to the airport, and what is the cost of it, and how often do I die during these like transportation routes? Like, these are the types of conversations that poker players just kind of have casually, where it's like, okay, let's see, I'm 1 in 550,000 to die. I mean, but like just all these insane conversations where people are checking out like their life EV and their happiness EV and the cost and all these insane things. And so I would just say that like that is, I try not to let that take myself over, obviously, but that's kind of baked into everything I do. So it's tough for me to like, not see things like the margin, like the rake on some of these, things, and just automatically think, wow, can I beat that? Like, what's my expected value in this tournament? Like, what are the mistakes people are going to make on this slate? Like, are they just not going to be able to make mistakes? I'm just constantly kind of seeing that. So that's what I would say is the poker applicability to DFS for sure.
Levitan, I see you nodding your head over there. Any thoughts?
Yeah, I'm always thinking about how I'm going to die. So I agree completely. You know what I mean?
Besides that wonderful little tidbit, any real applicability, or do we just want to kick this over to the?
I mean, bankroll management is the second thing I could talk about for sure. Just kind of understanding that you've got only so many different things that you can kind of put your resources into, right? There's only so many. You can only play cash games and tournaments, and you have to have money for NBA and money for NFL, and you have to decide when is it a good time to gamble? Like when is, some of these qualifiers, for instance, are just really high stakes. They're really high risk and really high reward. So, how much do you have to have online to be playing in a $300 winner take all qualifier? Is it 3K? Is it 10K? Is it 30K? I'm honestly not sure the answer to some of these questions. I have kind of, I sort of came up actually starting off pretty small from a bankroll point of view. Asani and I were just talking about this the other day. I just got kind of talked into playing the Millionaire Maker 1 week in week 1, I think, of 2 seasons ago. And I just binked a 20th for 3K, right? The $1 million to first and 20th is $3,000 or something. So I just sort of binked that. And then that was my bankroll. I deposited maybe $600. I sort of binked that 3K and I was like, all right, I'll try cash games. Now, what's the strategy here? Here's a few different random resources. And a lot of early on, just a lot of winning in NFL, and then NBA started. And I was like, oh, NBA, this is actually a sport I know something about for a change. So I did NBA and then just did a lot of winning. It was 2014 daily fantasy sports. It worked out well. I don't think it would have worked out nearly as well today, but like I said, right place, right place, righter time would have just been a year earlier probably, but still turned out pretty good. So bankroll management probably, start small with what you can afford would sort of be my recommendation there.
Peter, you got anything you want to throw in there?
No, Aaron's right on all that stuff. I think that there's a lot of things that transition well. A lot of people who got into poker early had a huge benefit getting into DFS, especially if they got in early. A lot of those things are really important. So, yeah, I think that makes a ton of sense. And I respect Aaron a ton. He's had a ton of success in all these different games, and he's picked up things like golf, which Aaron, when did you start playing golf?
Real golf or DFS golf?
DFS golf. I know we've talked real life golf too.
Real golf later, yeah. DFS golf. So I want to say pretty quickly after it came out, I picked it up unsuccessfully, and then I had another round or two with it, maybe last season or 2 seasons ago. Sorry, 2 seasons ago. And then I didn't really start doing it seriously until maybe about 9 months ago. Basically, the beginning of last season is when my friend Steve Silverman, who probably a lot of people know from poker, Zugwat, he got into DFS as well. And he actually just really got into DFS golf. He just decided he wanted to play a sport. NBA was ending. What are we going to do next? And, he just kind of got into it. And it's been pretty good. I've done pretty well at it, but it's also one of those really fun sports where I just have no idea what my edge is because the pricing is pretty competitive, and with the cut line, it makes it kind of high variance. So, really just a fun sport. I'm glad I got into it. Ton of fun.
Yeah, golf is great, and you have seen a ton of guys come over from poker and do really well. Your whole crew, and Asani's done really well. Empire Maker, one of the all-time legends, has had a ton of success in DFS. So, there's definitely a huge correlation, a lot of right time, right place. For some of these guys, too, they also had a bankroll from poker to apply to DFS when the market was really inefficient. So, now we're seeing similar things, too, which I think are really applicable. The market's getting a lot more efficient. People are getting better, and you're having to adjust. And the same thing happened in poker. So I think diversifying across a lot of sports and doing it well is a huge thing, and just a ton of respect for Aaron. I mean, winning the $5 million, I mean, I think that will probably be the biggest DFS prize that we'll see. I mean, I don't know if we'll ever see over $5 million. What do you think the price is on seeing a prize over $5 million, Aaron?
Unlikely. I mean, it might even be like, plus 600, plus 700 or something like that. Like it's really unlikely. I don't even know if we'll see anything over over two. Two might just be the top prize for the next few years. It might even be like, 50-50, we see something over. Yeah, exactly. I mean, I would, now that these sites have sort of, who knows what happens with the merger exactly, but now that these sites have sort of seen a level off and have to deal with all the legal stuff and all that stuff, I think kind of flattening out the payout structure would be probably pretty good for the ecosystem. I'll just take my money and run, and then they could just kind of make everything else a lot more gradual. But you don't get a lot of, you don't get a ton of benefit anymore from having a number, over one probably. So if you just made the payouts 1, 750, you might just see like a nice gradual payout for the next few years. And that'd be nice. I'd like to see that. So for these live finals, it's already such high variance getting in them and stuff. So I would like to see the money a little more spread out for sure.
I agree with that completely. Good for the sustainability for everyone. And live final is going to be fun. Would be awesome to see. I don't think anyone's ever won a live final back to back, like within the same sports. So good luck to Aaron. I hope it works out for you, man. And it's gonna be fun. New York's gonna be a good time. That's also why I have this also lighting. I'm in Miami right here before New York, so people can make fun of me. I also lost a prop. I'm wearing a Trump hat too. So I've been playing the Doral course. It pains me so hard. So it is what it is.
All right, let's get into the slate. We're focusing on roster construction and game theory. For more content on the slate, check out our NFL dashboard with positional breakdowns out on Thursday and previews for each game out by Friday. Aaron, let's start with you. Who are your potential chalk locks, like the chalky guys that you are thinking about right now for your cash game core?
I mean, I'm not sure. DK's pricing is pretty competitive this week, and my assumption is that, or my hope, I guess, is that something opens up later in the week. You can always kind of lock DJ and Bell in good spots, but again, the pricing is competitive on both sites. So expensive at this point. So, I mean, I guess those guys are sort of my early chalk locks. The thing I usually look for when finding chalk like this is guys whose price didn't rise from good performances in primetime games. In this case, maybe you could look at a guy like Lockett, but if you really think about it, he just got the 6 targets and 1 carry, exact same thing that he got the week before, 6 targets and 1 carry. He just so happened to turn it into a 75-yard touchdown. So I probably won't fall for something like that, although I'm sure he'll make a good tournament play. I mean, I don't know. I guess I can kind of ask you guys this. Allen Robinson put up 8 for 73 in the last 3 weeks combined. So is there some chance that at all the way down to 5K, he's just too talented? I mean, is the Vikings D any good? Is he going to turn out to be chalk this week? I don't know.
Yeah, I don't think he'll be chalk given the way he's played and given the matchup. Like, if they made him 5K in a better matchup, I would think he would be higher owned. But in this spot against Newman and Rhodes, like, man, I traded for Allen Robinson in Dynasty when I thought he was at his low point, and, like, he just keeps going, like, lower and lower and lower. I'm like, God, this might have been really bad. So, no, I don't think he'll be chalk. I mean, hey, I don't have one guy sticking out right now. In my first run of ownership projection, I had Le'Veon, Antonio Brown, DJ, Jordan Howard, and Thomas Rawls all right within the 20 to 25% range. But as Aaron mentioned, when you have DJ at 9,800 and Le'Veon at 9K, like, it's really hard for them to really get too popular, assuming nothing opens up. I mean, I don't really see much. I see Rob Kelly down low. I see Michael Floyd, Cam Meredith, but I don't think anybody's going to be really excited about that kind of stuff. So for now, I don't think we're going to see very many guys over 25% or so in the Million Maker.
Yeah, it's going to be tough in terms of ownership. I will say that Mike Evans will be another guy who I think will be somewhat owned. The one issue with him relative to other guys for ownership is that a lot of people will probably be spending on the running back, so it's harder to afford him. But I do think he will soak up ownership in tournaments. I also think the Cincinnati guys might end up being pretty heavily owned. Jeremy Hill, we'll see. Tyler Boyd. It's just tough right now. There's not a lot of value. So searching for those guys is definitely the challenge. And hopefully something opens up, because right now it's tough to make lineups. Definitely feels like the tightest week yet. And I do think there'll be a lot of different plays that people will be on. I think there'll be a lot of different guys at quarterback, which will lead to different stacks. So I don't see as many guys being really heavily owned relative to other weeks.
Yeah, I'd like to get your thoughts on this. Is it a function of just being near the end of the season and the sites become more efficient at pricing and players start to level off in their performance and we have a better idea of who they are? Or is it just some kind of random week where pricing is just more competitive?
I think friend of the podcast, Andrew Wiggins / Magasupa, like bitched enough to the point where DraftKings started pricing everybody up. I mean, I really think that that's the answer. Like he was just complaining, and now all these guys like backups they price up. So no, I don't know. I mean, I think they've just done a good job with pricing, like for the betterment of the game. Like you don't want guys that are obvious plays because then the guys up top become obvious plays too. You know, so you don't want. All it takes is one guy at 3K to be like a must play for everybody to have David Johnson and Le'Veon Bell also. You know what I mean? So, yeah, I think it's just good that it's going to make us think and make decisions.
It's totally true. I do think that overall for just like the DraftKings and FanDuel ecosystems, when the pricing's this tight and efficient, it makes it a little harder to make lineups for the casual player, which isn't great. But at the same time, you don't want one or two value guys and then everyone playing the same chalk expensive guys. So it's a tough balance. But I do think that the pricing is really, really good, really tight, and should be interesting, especially for a championship week on DraftKings.
Everybody's going to play Ladarius. I mean, everybody's going to try to play Ladarius, I think. I don't know. I mean, he still only played like 40% of the snaps, but after what he did, and given that he's still only 3,900 and he has a reasonable matchup, I feel like a lot of people are going to try to save with him.
Here's a question, and I think kind of this transitions into the part where we talk about guys who might be looking to fade. So if we're very interested in Le'Veon Bell, we're interested in Antonio, we're interested in Ladarius. Ben Roethlisberger is horrible on the road. He's horrible against division, and he's horrible on the road against division when he's a favorite. So it's sort of like the worst of all possible circumstances for him. I mean, I think he's a guy that we're fading, but should we be a little more bullish on some of those guys for the Steelers?
He's not in the division, first of all, but I agree with you.
Okay, sorry.
Yeah, generally. And yeah, I think, I mean, I can't believe I'm saying this, but I think I wouldn't rather play Odell than Antonio, but I think Odell is in a pretty good spot this week. And I think Peter will probably like Mike Evans over Antonio. I don't know. Is that true, Peter?
Well, Aaron's got a big reaction over there. I don't know. I think right now my first glance is Evans out of those guys, but I don't feel great about it. Antonio Brown, though, is so talented, but all the splits are really bad, really, really bad splits. And Buffalo also I have respect for. I know they choked that game away against Oakland, but I do have respect for Buffalo. They run the ball a ton too, which will hurt pace.
Yo, can we copy that clip? I think that was a compliment. I think we might want to send it to Odell right now.
Did you see what he tweeted after the game? Like, this dude is the worst. What he tweeted after the game last week was just embarrassing for him.
And then he was like, and he was talking shit about grammar police, and he was like, "Oh, yeah. It was bad, man. It was ugly."
It's like you guys stay on the sidelines. You don't know what it's like to play football. How much do you get paid to be the grammar police?
That tilts me so hard. And the way he just acts on the field too, he's always on the verge of getting like some stupid penalty.
Yeah,
runs down the field after he scores a touchdown.
I take back what I said. I'm not playing Odell. That's it.
All right. Well, Levitan, who are you looking to fade?
Odell. No. Yeah, I think Ladarius will be probably too high owned given his role. But it's hard because we're going to need to save. And like, I obviously feel better about Ladarius' ceiling than CJ Fedorowicz or Kyle Rudolph or Vernon Davis or something like that. So it's tough. But I think for tournaments, he might be an interesting fade. And then we'll see. I think one thing that for tournaments where it can get pretty optimal to fade is when these cheaper wide receivers get really high owned. I think we saw with Dorial Green-Beckham last week where he was like 30% or something like that in a lot of tournaments. And like Dorial Green-Beckham, the range of outcomes for him is just so wide. So we'll see who gets popular. You know, I think we could see Michael Floyd get popular. We could even see like Robbie Anderson get popular at stone minimum. Maybe Cam Meredith if Marquise Wilson sits again. So yeah, those would be guys that I would be thinking about trying to be off. And definitely the Ben situation. Agree with you. Like Ben going on the road to the Ralph to a pretty hungry defense. We'll see if they get Ronald Darby back, but either way, I feel like Ben is probably a pretty good fade too, given all the quarterback options we have.
Pete.
Yeah. I was going to go to Ben as well. Another guy who I think will be interesting, I'm not sure he'll be chalky at all, but I do have some concerns with is Aaron Rodgers. Even though he's at home and there could be potential here for him, I'm concerned with that hamstring. So I'll have to hear more reports and whatnot, but he looked pretty gimpy a couple times, and without his mobility, that makes me nervous. I'm curious how owned a lot of these guys are going to be. Like, what are the Cincinnati ownerships going to be? What are the Tampa Bay guys' ownership going to be? Are there pivots within those teams? Like, if we expect Jeremy Hill to be heavily owned and Tyler Boyd to be heavily owned, I really like paying up for Eifert because I think everyone's going to need savings at tight end. So I think that could be a nice kind of leverage play within the team. Only 2 catches last week, but did score a touchdown. I think he has a lot of touchdown equity and could have a nice game. Cleveland's obviously bad versus everything, but especially versus the tight end. So I don't know. It's a tough week in terms of figuring out who to fade. Aaron, what do you think?
Yeah. I would say it's definitely tough because we don't really know who's going to be the chalk just yet, I think. But the one thing I would say is you can just always fade these expensive guys when they're this expensive. I mean, it's a little tough to fade a guy like, Booker when he's 3,700 or whatever he was a month and a half ago. But it's easy to fade 9,800 David Johnson. Easy because it's just, he gets his 26. And you're like, oh, nice, he got 26. But maybe you just needed to have some 6K wide receivers to win a tournament or something, So there's, especially when there's no actually good cheap options or not enough that we see right now, pretty good chance that fading some of these expensive guys will be a pretty good idea.
Yeah. It all depends on how much scoring happens as well. Like if David Johnson gets his 26 and it's a really low scoring week, we'll probably need him. But in a lot of scenarios where there's even marginal scoring to good scoring, it's a great fade unless he gets obviously a huge game. The concern with that is we just don't know where we else, there's not that many guys that you're feeling really, really good production about their production. David Johnson, I mean, if you just take his receiving numbers over the last 3-4 weeks, he'd be right up there as one of the top 2-3 guys. And then the guy's a running back too. It just,
yeah, I mean, we always joke about how what would you pay if you could get I'm tough to even figure out a good example of a guy. What if you could just add Jamison Crowder to Ezekiel Elliott, right? You would just get David Johnson. I mean, That's kind of a weird example. That's basically the role that him and Le'Veon are both in right now, right?
It's crazy. I mean, he's seen double-digit targets the last 3 weeks. I think he has 41 targets over the last 4 weeks. I mean, it's unreal how much volume he's getting and how much he's producing. So I agree with you. 9,800 is so expensive, and it's really easy to go away from that, especially in tournaments. I think it makes a ton of sense. But we'll see. I mean, it depends on how the week plays out for scoring.
Yeah, I mean, I just want to be clear. I haven't put anything together yet, but I will probably not be fading David Johnson in cash. I mean, that is probably not – I don't want to give any secrets away, but that is almost certainly not going to be happening.
Let's talk about some stacks there. And Pete, you did a lineup review, and I think one stack that you talked about was Palmer and David Johnson. And if it wasn't you who talked about that, then it was Bales who also did a lineup review. But are you looking at any stacks this week? And I mean, obviously, who knows if you're doing Palmer or David Johnson, but any stacks that kind of catch your eye that you're thinking about right now?
I mean, the one that's interesting that could be heavily owned, but I'm not sure it will be because there's so many options at quarterback is Jameis to Mike Evans. Jameis has been playing – it's weird. He makes a lot of mistakes, but he makes some really great plays, and he also has some rushing equity. So I do think that's interesting. Obviously, another stack that if you want to go the other side and you want to go, basically away from the recency bias or capitalize on recency bias, you could play Drew Brees on the other side. I'm curious to see the ownership on stacks with him and Snead, maybe Cooks. The issue is Drew Brees also has pretty big home road splits. But last week with so many good options, I was surprised to see Drew Brees just way more heavily owned than anyone else. And so many people got burned. It could be a stack to go back to. So right now I'm looking at that game. I think there's a lot of other options, but I'm pretty stuck in terms of what I think will be the most heavily owned. That's what I'm curious about. What stack will be the most heavily owned in tournaments, the Millionaire Maker and even the DraftKings Championship?
Yeah, I think it'll be Luck to Hilton because Hilton's price didn't move off the game last night. Obviously, prices were already set. And if Andrew Luck had gone out and thrown 4 touchdowns on Sunday, he'd probably be 74 or something like that. Instead, he's 69 and T.Y. Hilton's only 75. So I think people that are going to look to go balance are going to go Luck to Hilton. And I certainly have no problem with it. It's a division game, but it's the first time through the division, and it's a home game for Andrew Luck. And we know about Andrew Luck's ceiling, obviously. So I think Luck to Hilton would be probably the chalk stack, maybe. And if it's not, it's probably my favorite stack of the week.
Yeah, I mean, I kind of just expected it would be Jameis to Mike Evans. And I think people are just a little afraid to play Brees after last week. Everything Peter said, basically. But getting in that game is going to be amazing. So if you have to throw Brees to Michael Thomas in there and you expect to get them at like relatively low ownership because people are gun shy, you probably just want to do that. That seems like a great idea, obviously. And then, I mean, I want to ask you guys about this. I don't know that this is, maybe this isn't a chalk stack. I mean, actually, it certainly isn't a chalk stack, but I'll ask you guys anyways. If I had a torn labrum, I probably wouldn't be able to get the Lucky Charms off the top shelf at the grocery store. But, I mean, can we just play Phillip Rivers to Tyrell this week? I mean, the Panthers seem like they're just in fuego and not in a good way. I just kind of feel like that's something I want to do, basically.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I like that a lot. I mean, I love Tyrell. The labrum thing is concerning, especially if in a big spot you hate playing the guy who's already injured coming in, but he's been so good. And I actually like potentially going to the other side too if you want to get – I wonder what Cam's ownership is going to be. You could play him with like Ted Ginn or Kelvin Benjamin on the other side. The one concern is I don't know. I think there's a lot of really good spots here. One question I missed up that game, I think. Luck with Hilton and Hopkins back is actually relatively cheap as well, Adam.
Yeah.
I think the Chargers game, one other quick point on that, Dontrell Inman is another option that I'm curious to see his ownership because he's been getting a lot of targets and has been a viable option. He's really cheap. His price has come up a little bit, but he's a guy who's really never owned either. So the Chargers are a hard team to kind of peg in terms of who they're stacking.
Yeah, I basically always want to play Rivers, and I just never know who to play him with. And that's actually pretty interesting. I guess game theory-ish type of thing is that you can get quarterbacks who should be owned at lower ownership because people are afraid to play when they don't have someone good to stack them with.
Right. I mean, Phillip Rivers last week in the Super Q and a really good spot was 0.7% owned.
Mm-hmm.
Exactly.
It's a really good point, Aaron, about the lower ownership because of the stacking. I guess the stacking dynamics. Let's talk a little bit about some of the advanced and contrarian stacks. And I think we kind of already started to go there, but the stacks that we think could end up being very productive, but that a lot of people might not be on for one reason or another, something like the River stack there. Aaron, any thoughts?
Yeah, definitely. In this spot, I mean, I kind of like to go good offense versus good defense in this spot. I know last year, like actually in the first round of the DraftKings Live final, I got Antonio Brown at like, I don't remember 6 or 6.5% or something because he was at Denver. And this is just, sometimes you have guys like, are people going to be off Green Bay because they're playing the Seahawks? Is Earl Thomas out make a bunch of really good stacks there? I mean, Rodgers just lines up in the gun and, you can just pair him with a million different guys 2 at a time, basically, right? Like, is that an interesting option? That seems like that's a pretty good idea. And then the other one I would say that Peter won't agree with is, can you just do like Mariota to Delaney? I mean, they price these guys so competitively. You just have Delaney down below Zach Ertz. I mean, I know that they're coming off a bye, and Mariota is the winning quarterback of the Millionaire Maker just about every other week, right? I mean, that's not like some fact checker could tell me, but I think it's about every other week. So maybe this is a Mariota fucking winning week of the Millionaire Maker. I mean, I don't know.
Yeah, I don't like that, but I get the rationale. If I was going to play a tight end, another like along that same lines, I think Demarco Murray is actually a really good play this week. And I could see Mariota doing it too with the rushing. Denver's D, they got Derek Wolfe back. I don't know. One guy that I think, or one stack that I think is really interesting that actually isn't that expensive is Dak Prescott to Dez Bryant. You could also, if you really wanted to just get a bunch of saving, you could go Dak and Jason Witten. I think that's a stack that won't be owned really at all. Obviously, that game, man, I don't know. I know Dallas is going to run a lot, but and you have to respect the Giants' corners, but that's a stack that I think could be really, really low owned. I know you probably don't like that, Adam, because of Jenkins, right?
I mean, if I'm playing for $2 million, I'd rather lose than play Jason Witten. Like, I just can't do it. I'd rather come away with $0. But I do think Dak to Dez is interesting. You know, I thought given the volume of Dallas's offense and given that they want to run at every opportunity, that Dez would be really limited with Dak. But I think that's built into his price now, you know, and I think there's definitely an expectation where you can get profit on his price now. So, yeah, I think Dak to Dez is interesting. And in the same game, I mean, Eli is super cheap. If you think that game can shoot out, I mean, Eli's only 5,500 and Odell gives you 900 savings on Mike Evans. I mean, Dallas' secondary is bad. We'll see if they get Mo Claiborne back. But, you know, if the Giants can play better, and they've run way more no huddle at home and played way faster at home than they have on the road. So I think Eli stacks can make some sense. And we've gone all this time without talking about the GOAT, Kirk Cousins. I mean, this Eagles team is just wretched. Like, they're really bad. I mean, their corners, like, not just PFF grades, but if you just watch, like, Jalen Mills and Nolan Carroll and McKelvin, like, these guys can't play whatsoever. So maybe they rise up and turn things around in a division game at home, but I kind of doubt it. And the Redskins really need this game. So, yeah, I think Kirk Cousins stacks with, we'll see if Jordan Reed gets healthy, but if he's not, we know who benefits. It's Crowder, it's Vernon Davis, and then, you know, if you want to do the high risk stuff for tournaments, Deshaun Jackson's going to get 3-4 deep balls in this game.
Really interesting stuff there. Pete, you had mentioned Demarco Murray earlier, and I'd like to ask Levitan, since Adam, you are the guy who's doing the ownership projections at FantasyLabs, what you're thinking about him right now, because he is a guy who has production. He's going against the Denver defense that, if it's vulnerable anywhere, it is more against the run historically than against the pass. And he is a guy who can catch the ball out of the backfield. Any thoughts on him?
Yeah, my initial thought was 4 to 5% in the Millie Maker on DeMarco Murray. I think as you go up in buy-in on DraftKings, he'll be higher owned just because sharper people are more aware that Denver is susceptible to the running back. So, yeah, but I think in something like the Millie Maker, he'll be super low owned. I mean, people just see Denver and don't roster anybody. I mean, Peter's been just telling them to do that all year. So they just listen to Peter. They don't click anybody who's playing Denver.
That's normally been a good strategy, but I'll take the under on 4 or 5% too. I think, like, the way, unless value opens up, like, how are you ever going to pay for DeMarco Murray when you're trying to save everywhere instead of paying up for one of the other running backs? I really think he's at a really tough price, so I expect his ownership to be pretty low.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
that seems true. Yeah, he was looking svelte at the Playboy party this weekend. He just came make a quick appearance, and I think he just kind of sat in a cabana and did nothing for like an hour and probably got paid like $50,000 or something. So that's what he was doing on his bye week, in case you guys were curious.
That's amazing. Great intel right there. How was he walking well? His toe looks good, you know, like.
I don't know. He might have been a little bit of a limp. I can't really tell. I don't know.
Oh man. We don't know what to do with that. All right.
That's some misinformation right there. All right, let's get to the bold calls. Last week we were 0 on our bold calls. We were exceptionally bold. Pete, let's start with Levitan. Give us one bold call, so real, and then one bold DFS football call.
All right, let me go DFS. I'm not prepared for my real life bold call yet, but my DFS bold call, I'll say Lesean McCoy, 200 total yards in this game. I think we've seen the way, you know, like, Steelers secondary has been playing a lot better. And I think they've gotten a boost from the kid, Ross Cockrell, but they've been just devastated by run games. Like, even Rashad Jennings had a really good game against the Steelers last week. So Lesean McCoy just keeps playing well, just keeps killing people. Like, the dude is just unbelievable. If it wasn't for DJ and Le'Veon, like, everybody would be playing Lesean McCoy every week. He'd be like 30%. He touches the ball 20 to 25 times a game. He's involved in the pass game. He's super explosive on long runs. So I'll say Lesean McCoy over 200 total, and he'll probably be relatively low owned given he's only 800 less than Le'Veon and only 200 less than Ezekiel Elliott.
Yeah, that's pretty bold. I would add to that, Mike Gillislee gets like 6 touchdowns and kills everybody. Gillislee, it's so painful. Pete, let's go to you for some bold calls.
Yeah, I was basically drawing dead in the Super Q last week. My only hope was McCoy with a Raider stack, and Gillislee was painful. So that's always fun watching football and the secondary guys get in, which just is reality. But bold calls, I'll steal your thunder, Adam, and just die with this one. I'll go down with your Browns as winning their first game. I think you get 5.5 points with them now, so sure I'll buy that, and I'll correlate it with a huge game from Corey Coleman. I'll say he gets the DraftKings bonus, goes over 100 yards, scores a touchdown. It's probably a long one, and helps the Browns get their first win.
Nice. Very, very bold there. Aaron.
The Falcons are like 5.5-point favorites on the road in LA. I'm going to say they just win by 2 touchdowns. I think Jacquizz Rodgers and Michael Turner and I don't know, maybe even Warwick Dunn. Oh, my bad. I just never remember.
Wow. Well played.
So I think probably you get a touchdown each from Coleman and Freeman, and I think they just steamroll. Thankfully, they've got 2 more years of joy in LA. As far as DFS call, I was gonna go with David Johnson throws a touchdown since they could probably use a quarterback in Arizona, and he's been doing about everything else. But I Googled it, and the guy didn't even play quarterback in high school, so I guess I probably can't pick that. So I'm gonna abstain from bold DFS calls. I think I've done well in my DFS career from trying not to be too bold. So I'm gonna say.
Adam, can we take some notes there? Like, we hate the bold calls. We do it all the time. We brick them every single time. And then Aaron elegantly gets out of it in a right way, which is sharp.
Yeah.
We recommend bullshit every week,
Yeah, let's give a rant on FPS, Aaron, because I really think it's a symptom that's going on. I mean, give the FPS rant.
First of all, every reaction to like every little thing that happens in daily fantasy sports is just some crazy FPS overreaction to like everything else. I mean, the weather comes out and I'm off Kirk Cousins in cash and he throws 6 touchdowns and 600 yards. I mean, all these different things are like, it's just every time a new piece of information comes into your brain, you wind up getting too high or too low on it. And you really just have to stay the course. You have to just like trust what you did all week. And you have to just like, stay kind of true to you can't go too off, but you can't go too crazy. So I definitely think that's the leak that some DFS players could plug. By the way, can I just go completely off topic and give a quick rant? Can I ask you guys, squeaky wheel? Like, what is it? Like, what is it where, like, last week we had, like, a bunch of guys or 2 weeks ago we had a bunch of guys get 0 points. And then we had, like, the Antonio Gates squeaky wheel, and Eli is apologizing to Sterling Shepard, and Brandon Cooks' agent is like, yo, my team just scored 49 fucking points, but I didn't get the ball. I'm not happy on this team. I'm upset. Like, who are these people? Like, if I'm on the basketball court and like this is the only sport I actually know, and like someone is like double teaming me in the corner because like, I'm the Kyle Korver of my local pickup game. Like I'm not upset when I don't get the ball and the guy drives through the lane and just gets a wide open layup because he can't help. Like, what is wrong with these guys? If Brandon Cooks is getting double, first of all, Brandon Cooks is not good enough to be complaining. Okay, I don't think anyways. Maybe he's way better than I think, but I think you have to be like, a top 5 receiver to be complaining or something. He just, no shows way too many weeks when he's not being double covered or in some sort of special coverage. So what the hell is that? What is that? Why are people complaining through their agent in the media? Like, is there something wrong with professional sports? Like, what is the deal with this bullshit?
The sick part is that I knew this was going to happen too, that everybody like wanted to play the squeaky wheel. Brandon Cooks was like 16% in the Millie Maker or something like that. You know what I mean? Like, and everybody wants to jump on it. So yeah, I mean, people have like this real strong reaction to squeaky wheel stuff too.
Yeah. All right. The squeaky wheel is a fallacy most of the time. And I agree. I have jumped on it. And Aaron, part of the problem is definitely me. I used to talk about this all the time and say it was 100% fact. And I actually got confirmation on this one. Peyton Manning definitely greased the squeaky wheel all the time. Hyper aware of it. I played some golf with Brandon Stokely and was on a panel with him. Asked him the point-blank question, and he said, yes, Peyton knows exactly. And he goes up and says, oh, we're going to find you a touchdown this week because you didn't get any of the last couple weeks. He's the one guy. Peyton Manning is the one guy the squeaky wheel is actually applicable. The other narrative stuff, I mean, it's the same thing as FPS. And what's your thoughts on game theory? You kind of went into it, but like, game theory is obviously really important, but I feel like it's gotten so talked about and people are all about it and everything they do now that it's like exceeded even FPS in poker.
Yeah, I mean, game theory is kind of too broad of a thing to just like address. Within specific things, I think game theory is obviously very interesting when it comes to something like ownerships in large field tournaments. I mean, that's the thing I think that is kind of the most interesting. Do you want to be playing this guy at like 25% when his projection is X, or do you want to be playing this guy at like 10% when his projection is like X minus 5% or whatever, So like that's sort of the most applicable thing I think to daily fantasy sports. I mean, you can sort of apply game theory in a bunch of different ways to daily fantasy sports, but it's just kind of anytime you see an imbalance, and you have to kind of know when you can actually use it and when you shouldn't just be playing the highest raw projected guy, and when you can't just you go too off brand trying to game theory up, getting low ownerships, and you wind up, sometimes I don't have any idea how to project ownership. I mean, another good example going back to the DFS live final is that a couple of years ago or last year, in the first week, I played Kamar Aiken. That was the week that he caught like a Hail Mary or something like that. But even aside from the Hail Mary, he had I don't remember, he would have had 5 or 6 for 70, even aside from the Hail Mary touchdown he caught. And I just thought he was chalk. It was Steve Smith was out or something and someone else was out and he was like 4K or 4,500. And I just thought that he was pure chalk. I ran him in every single cash lineup. And he was 10% in cash and 4.5% or something in the live final. And it was just I would have, when I was making my team and I was okay, I don't want my team to be too chalky for this live final. What's his ownership? I penciled in 25%. I was just way off. I mean, I didn't have FantasyLabs' very excellent ownership projections there for me, but I just had no idea. So sometimes I think people just get a little too crazy with ownership stuff and a little too scared to play certain guys, and sort of go off of just playing really high value guys.
I think that happens in live finals more than anything. I think that's the one thing. I think that's the one spot where it makes a ton of sense, and there's been so many people that have had a bunch of sets, especially in sport like baseball or hockey, where it's so event-based, even more so than football to a degree, where game theory has just proved to be really, really a good thing. And not even game theory, but just really hitting contrarian plays. And it's certainly really interesting in football, and it's really interesting in these live finals. But I do think that a lot of these chalky guys end up being really under-owned relative to where you'd expect because people don't want to play that expensive chalk guy.
Yeah, I mean, you never know when you can just play Danny Woodhead at 1% and Melvin
Oh
Gordon.
my gosh!
Quarter. And
I had Melvin Gordon.
You're just the leader going into the clubhouse. You never know.
Unbelievable. Yeah, and it's just the same thing. I think golf is another, not to go too much on this, but the Masters, Jordan Spieth this last year is 3% in the Thunderdome. Some of these spots are just it's very interesting how it works out with ownership, and I certainly think that could be the case here down the stretch. But certain guys will be really under-owned to what people expect.
Yeah, definitely. I remember the example I remember is the NBA Live final last year. Everybody and their mother had James Harden locked in cash. He was playing at Minnesota or something. And I just kind of assumed that he would be over 50%, even though he's expensive. Everybody is expensive, obviously. So I went with some weird Steph and Draymond versus Dirk Stack or something like that, where they were 14-point road favorites. And I just kind of assumed no one would play him. And the result is that Harden is 34% and Steph is 25%. And so everybody, not everybody, but a lot of other people had that thought. Hey, the sort of sociology of tournaments, especially when there's so much content being put out there and wisdom that a lot of people use, is very interesting, right? I mean, it's something I don't know a ton about, but we'll probably have to learn a lot more about in the coming years as I think GPPs become a bigger deal than cash games, as the sites sort of naturally move that progression over.
Yep, totally agreed. GPPs are definitely going to be the future. Well, they already are a huge part of DFS, but grinding cash games for a lot of these guys, these top pros and whatnot, is going to get more and more challenging, and I think a lot of the volume is going to shift to GPPs.
Interesting stuff there. Let's get to the skill game propositions. And Peter, let's start with you. Let's see what you got.
And I mean, first of all, I'm going to be not throwing out the volume. I'm with the ultimate sharks now. I mean, I'm swimming. Before I got the volume to get the things going and just was handing out the equity. I mean, with Aaron on the show, I got to be sitting back like Levitan trying to get something. But I'll take Evans just to start. I'll take Evans over the receiver. Like if you want to take a receiver versus Mike Evans, I'll take Evans.
You just took the most expensive wide receiver. Like
that's fine.
No, I can't give out any equity. I mean, you're swimming with sharks.
I'll take Antonio. I'll take Antonio versus Evans.
Not Beckham, Adam. You sure?
No, I can't believe I said positive things about Beckham earlier. It's an embarrassment.
Okay.
I'll give if anybody wants Brees, I'll take Luck versus Brees.
I like Luck. You don't have to talk me into Luck.
I mean, Brees is 500 more.
I'll take Luck. I agree with you on that one. Just raw projection. I think Luck is right there.
Yeah.
I have one. I want to bet on Delaney. I'll take Delaney versus anyone cheaper than him on DraftKings.
Okay, let's see here. The one thing, too, that we can get that I think will be super interesting is if we can get some of these, like, 1 versus 2s or 2 versus 3s in certain spots. I think that'll be fun. Oh, man. Adam, you like it?
I'll give you Delaney and anybody under him, and I'll take and I will take Jimmy Graham. That's ton of equity for you. Delaney and anybody under him, and I'll take Jimmy Graham.
Highest score, right? The high scorer wins.
Yeah.
I mean, I'll just take Ladarius.
Okay.
I'll go with Aaron side there. Jump on the train.
Yeah, I'm going with Aaron.
Nice.
I think people might be on Kyle Rudolph too. He's the same price as Ladarius, but I mean, Kyle Rudolph's role is certainly more secure, but Ladarius definitely has a bigger ceiling, obviously.
I think Tyler Eifert's really going to be low owned. I wish I could get something here, but like Greg Olson's $1,000 cheaper than him now. Like that's pretty surprising. I know the matchup's huge for Eifert, but there's something there. I would like to buy. I like Eifert a lot this week. I don't know what's reasonable. Maybe I take Eifert someone under 4K versus any 2 other tight ends or something.
Yeah, I mean, we know that draft.
I won't take Green. I'll take someone other than Ladarius Green under 4K.
Yeah. I mean, DraftKings is adjusting prices due to matchup like hardcore. That's why Delaney is so cheap. That's why Eifert's so expensive. You know what I mean?
Right. All right. Well, we can go to quarterback too. I like Andrew Luck. You sold me at him, and I was already looking at him quite a bit. I like that game stat there. I guess it's hard because you really want to take him as well. I would take Andrew Luck and any quarterback under 6,000 versus any other 2 quarterbacks high scoring. If someone wants to jump on that.
Fine. I'll take Brees and Stafford.
Okay. I will take Luck, and I will take
Barkley.
I'm not taking freaking Matt Barkley. Is Kaepernick have any jeopardy to get benched again?
Oh, dude, I can't. I mean, like he's in such a great spot.
Is he going to actually start? They're just going to just.
They named him the starter.
Yeah, they
announced California, so he's good now.
I mean, if he didn't get benched, he would be like the chalk in this spot. I mean, the Jets.
You talked about the Panthers mailing it in. Yeah. The Jets look like they're mailing it in more than any team in the league right now.
Yeah, that's something I start to worry about I start to worry about that shit late in the season, like who's just like doesn't give a shit anymore? Who is just like 3 more weeks, cash my check, get out of here. I mean,
Darrelle Revis hasn't given a shit since the season started. I mean, from week 1 when AJ Green just roasted him.
I'm going Kaepernick and Luck. So, all right, I think that's reasonable. Aaron, you want any of that? Kaepernick, Luck. You can take any other 2 quarterbacks versus those 2.
I will just also I'll take Adam's side. I'll take Brees and Stafford.
Okay.
I'm going to take Brees and Winston.
All right, let's throw out. One of you guys should throw out something similar where you take just like one of the guys at running back. Maybe we can go to receiver. I mean, is there a running back? I guess this is interesting. Would you rather have, like David Johnson and someone versus like 2 studs? David Johnson. I don't know. I don't know what side is better there, but Adam, do you have a preference on any of those?
I mean, I want to buy McCoy. Do you guys want? I'll take McCoy, and you can have 2 guys under 6K.
Ooh. Sure, I'll do it. I'll take Jeremy Hill and Thomas Rawls.
Yeah.
That's just either or has to outscore him.
Yep, either or has to outscore him.
Yeah, I will. I'll take Peter's side on that.
Yeah. Rawls is going to be popular for sure after the way he looked on Sunday night.
Oh, yeah. What do we think about Theo Riddick? That's someone that we didn't talk about that I think is really interesting this week. I know obviously he's been limited all year. You never know how many touches he's actually going to get and how many snaps. But in this spot, I mean, especially, I think he could have a huge game in the passing or a huge game in the passing game.
Yeah,
I didn't watch a lot of that game. They were up quite a bit. How do you only get 4 rushing attempts?
Yeah, Dewayne Washington. I mean, I think they like Dewayne Washington. They use him in that early down role. So, yeah, I mean, if they get a lead, I don't think Riddick's going to be the guy, and that's certainly a concern when you're playing against the Bears. And I'll also say that despite what's happened to the Bears with Freedman and Trevathan and all the suspensions and injuries, like they continue to do a good job against running backs generally, but I wouldn't really consider Theo Riddick a running back per se. You know what I mean? So
that's what I'm thinking. We'll have to see on Marvin Jones too, but I think Theo Riddick in the passing game could be interesting. The Bears are still – obviously they're not playing bad defense, so the game I think helped a lot with Kaepernick not being able to throw it all. But I think there's some serious upside there. The one concern, like you said, is can the Bears keep this close so that they are still throwing? I do have a lot of respect for this Lions defense. They've been playing great.
Yeah. In that price range, what happened with Doug Martin last week? I just see like undisclosed issue or something like that. Like I had him in like a couple of high stakes things, and like this is obviously a sweet spot for him. He's out or what? What's his deal?
Yeah, no, I had a really good lineup on FanDuel in tournaments, and it had Doug Martin, and he just like stopped playing. He said he got bent back, and he just like Jaquays got the last like 13 touches of the game. The Bucs said he's fine, but we'll find out tomorrow what's really wrong with Doug Martin. But yeah, I mean, it was super tilted.
Yeah, so you were calling Doug Martin the whole. I felt bad. I actually thought of you when he wasn't playing down the stretch because he had potential to have a big game there.
Yeah.
We'll see. That will impact that whole situation too, because obviously you want to take a lot of guys on the Bucs. I'm trying to think. I thought Forte was going to have a really good game potentially last night as well. Obviously has a really good matchup here against San Francisco, but again, it's really hard to buy the Jets right now.
I mean, they're going to be starting Bryce Petty, and like
it seems like a disaster.
Like Matt Barkley to me is like, I don't know, Freedman probably knows more than me, but I think Matt Barkley's a way better prospect than Bryce Petty, right, Freedman?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, well, it's hard to say. I mean, Petty was in that Baylor system.
Throwing to Corey Coleman.
Yeah, it's hard to project that guy to the NFL. One thing you have to like about Barkley is that he at least has more time in the NFL as a backup, and he's been able to hang around, be on different teams. Even if he didn't make it work with Chip Kelly or with Bruce Arians, he's at least been able to stay in the league and hopefully pick up some stuff. So you have to like him a little bit more, if for no other reason than that.
Yeah, I think I'd rather play 49ers D than anybody on the Jets, to be honest with you. Robbie Anderson would be the one guy that I'd be interested in.
Yeah, I'm with you there. One guy that I think is interesting is I would buy. I like Dante Moncrief potentially as a play. Obviously, there's a lot of touchdown tied to him, but I would take. I like that game. I didn't spend too much time on DeAndre Hopkins and Fuller. I have mentioned that I like them a bit. I think that I like those guys. I would give maybe an expensive receiver and a really cheap receiver versus 2 guys like that, or I'd be willing to look at another scenario.
How much is Moncrief?
Moncrief's 63. I think isn't I was trying to look for Watkins or Hopkins price. He's 5,800.
I mean, my concern with Moncrief is like he really throughout his entire career he has I think one 100-yard game, and he's like barely ever over 70 yards. So he's going to score a touchdown. Like he scores a touchdown every game. Andrew Luck plays. So I like that. I think he's a way better play on FanDuel. Like on DraftKings, I think I'd rather play Golden Tate. I'd maybe rather play Manny Sanders. And I mean, one guy we didn't talk about, but Sammy Watkins is only 5,300, and he's, played on almost every one of Tyrod Taylor's dropbacks last week. So I think Watkins is interesting too.
Yeah, I know they're going to play him as much as he can go with Watkins, and he's certainly interesting. Pertaining to the Broncos receivers, Parish Cox is now not on the team. So is that still a good thing to go after there, Adam? I know we were picking on him all year.
Who could Parish Cox's backup be? I don't know. He's got to be worse than Parish Cox.
Apparently, it's better if they let Parish Cox go. I don't know. I need to look into that a bit more. But yeah, the Broncos are an interesting buy as well. I hope Simeon plays. Have you heard anything on that? I assume he will.
I think he will. Yeah. You want to give me? I'll give you tons of equity. Watkins is only 5,300. I'll take him straight against Moncrief.
Sure. And let me buy Emmanuel Sanders too, so that at least I can win a skill game prop when he steals my wife.
I kind of like this spot for Manny. Did you notice that, like, in the last game against the Chiefs, like, they moved Manny, not Demarius, to get against Phillip Gaines? You know what I mean? And I didn't think the Broncos would do that, but they seem to be thinking, at least it looks like they're like, we want to get Manny on our best matchup, not DT. Slapping DT.
Yeah, if you watch Emmanuel, he's getting way more separation. Like, he's getting wide open on some of his routes. So I think that they want to leverage that. And DT, too, does so much good work just on, like, the screen passes and the shorter slants. So I think it makes sense. Like, you're going to set up a bigger play with Emmanuel. And for whatever reason, I mean, Simeon loves going to him. I mean, his market share numbers are off the charts. I mean, I guess it works both ways with both those guys, but even more so for Emmanuel.
Yeah, I haven't really played, like, any DT all season because at the beginning of the year they were just like, oh yeah, he's got this like degenerative hip thing or something, and then whatever it is, like yo, he's got this hip thing, and it might just be like he's going to play in pain all year, and like just playing through like tons of pain. But I just kind of assume that it's got to be hindering him in some way, you know? I mean, I guess he hasn't had like a great year, Trevor Siemian throwing to him, but I don't know what's his deal. Is he? I mean, he's like 5,700 or 6K or something, like 6K DK. Like, I don't know. He was probably 8K or something at this time last year or something. So I don't know.
Yeah, I have a bias against playing DT all year.
Play him yet or what?
Yeah, that first game. Sorry, I was at the game there, and he came off the field right away for hurting his hip. He got a screen pass in the first play, and then he couldn't get any explosion on his hip at all, and he missed like the next 3 or 4 series, and they're talking about potentially surgery and all this stuff. So that stuck with me watching him. We were right in front of the Broncos bench, and I just haven't played him as much. I've played a lot more Emmanuel Sanders, so probably get that too because my wife gives me shit if I don't play him. So I have to get at least one share of Emmanuel Sanders most weeks.
Aaron, are there any wide receivers you want to get a piece of? Still muted.
Yeah, sorry. I mean, I look at some of these guys and like they're just so cheap. I mean, I'm just like, I look at, DeAndre Hopkins is down there so cheap. And then like I mentioned earlier, I mean, you have just some talented guys. Allen Robinson is 5K and Randall Cobb is 5K. And maybe not like, I'm not looking at these guys for cash or anything like that, but all of these guys for tournaments just seem suddenly viable because of how reactive DraftKings pricing is to every single situation at this point, I mean, I just feel like you can play almost anybody. You just have like, Tyreek Hill is the same price as Allen Robinson. Like, what is the line you could have got before the season that was going to be a thing? Pretty high. So I don't know. I look at these guys and I'm kind of interested in like all of them for tournaments and kind of none of them for cash. I'm just hoping that like something opens up at this point to figure out a way to play David Johnson. I'm hoping I don't want anyone to sprain their ankle or fall down the stairs and break both wrists. But if they do and their backup is 3K, then I'm considering it, like it's not the worst thing in the world for me.
Yeah, we definitely need some value to pop open. You should take Allen Robinson, man. Sounds like you want to take some Allen Robinson.
I am, I do kind of like, I just love these guys that are just, I mean, Allen Robinson is like what? He like broke some combine record for the shuttle or something. He's just this crazy athletic freak. And maybe Blake Bortles isn't as good as I am at playing quarterback, but still you'd think he could catch a few random passes, I mean, I don't know.
You're talking to two guys that love it.
Yeah, I do kind of. I mean, I just like love the theory of Allen Robinson. I don't actually love Allen Robinson. I'm not sure, but no, I'll take Allen Robinson. Give me, Allen Robinson against someone in that price range. I mean, throw me an offer.
I mean, I'll take Sammy Watkins. I will give you. I'll even give you some equity. I'll give you Brandon. I'll take Brandon LaFell over Allen Robinson too.
Sounds good. I will take Allen Robinson there. Yeah.
Yeah, let me.
It's been 14 weeks. I'm like, God, I'm so sick of. I've played Allen Robinson with the same thinking that you have. It's just so tilting.
I'm just trying to get a piece of that massive 18 team total. I feel like with that big 18 team total, A-Rob's got to have some touchdowns coming, right?
I've played Allen Robinson so many times. Adam and I both loved him, obviously, with college, and he's a guy that I love to play. You get all the garbage time or what you think is going to be garbage time. They're always in a good game flow for him, and Blake Bortles just is absolutely pitiful.
Actually, let me ask then, what is the I feel like we've oscillated on this a bit. Is the Vikings D any good? I mean, I feel like they were good and they were not good. I mean, Levitan, if the Vikings D is any good?
Yeah, so they're probably not as good as they were in the beginning of the year, but I still think their corner play is among the best in the league with Xavier Rhodes and Terrence Newman. It's not a defense I'm necessarily looking to attack. They're probably overrated at this point, but yeah, I think perimeter corner is kind of where they excel. So that would be a concern for Allen Robinson too.
Yeah. I'll take Boyd versus him as well, just for giggles, just because I love Allen Robinson. Like Adam said, I do have respect for their corners, especially Xavier Rhodes. I think he's a top 5, top 10 guy for sure. So that gives me a little bit of pause with Allen Robinson. But I'll take Boyd, take Watkins there as well, and then I'll throw out one last thing. I'll take the 2 Denver receivers, and you guys can take any 2 receivers you want under 7K, just to be giving up the equity and to be on brand here to the guest. Got to give away one good spot here.
All right, I'll go. Go ahead, Aaron.
I'll take Michael Thomas and Doug Baldwin.
All right, I'll take Dez and Golden Tate.
All right. So to win that one, it's whoever has the highest score out of the 4.
I'm going to take, let's see.
And Freeman comes in too, of course. He's just been sitting over there. Gosh,
of course.
This is how I lose every time. Just like,
of course. I'm going to take.
Got to stay on brand though.
I'm going to take Dez and Michael Thomas.
Like it.
Okay. I think any other ones that you want to throw out, or anyone else?
No, I'm not. I'm done giving away equity after that.
Any more degeneracy? Yeah.
No,
I don't need any more Coors Light. My fridge is hypothetically stocked for like years to come.
Yeah.
All right, guys, thanks for being on the show. We've been speaking with Aaron Jones, Adam Levitan, and Peter Jennings on Twitter at AEJonesLego, Adam Levitan, and CSURAM88. And you can follow me on Twitter at MattFTheOracle. I'm Matthew Freedman, and this has been the Daily Fantasy Flex podcast for Week 14. If you like the show, please rate and review us on iTunes, Stitcher, or Podbean. And don't forget to check out our NFL dashboard with positional breakdowns on Thursday and previews for each game out by Friday. Thanks for tuning in. Good luck, and we will see you next week.